me introduce myself. My name's Paul Jager, and this session is going to be staying lawful with training. I'm the head of MOL's Property Law and Property Agency Division. However, we have also with us today Michael Morgan. Michael, good afternoon to you.
Hello, Paul.
And again, I'm hoping everyone can hear both our voices, so that's good. And we have about 40 minutes or so. 40 minutes or so together. We're going to be looking to cover these particular topics, and again, I hope everyone can see them on their screen. So we'll, Michael and myself will start just giving you a little bit of an overview of both the TDS and MOL, which is the organisation I work for. Michael will then cover talking a little about protecting deposits and why it's obviously very important to follow the law. We're then going to talk about why both the landlords and property agents, not only the TDS Academy, but also the TDS qualification may be of use to you. We'll talk just a little bit about why training is important now, and I'll cover a little about if you decide to do the TDS qualification, what the study materials, what the workbook holds for you if you decide to go down that route. I'll briefly cover, for those of you who already have a qualification, any exemptions you might have from the TDS qualification. And then we'll talk about your next steps, and probably then we'll take questions as well. So I hope you don't mind. If you want to ask any questions, please feel free to do that in the question box, but we'll probably leave the questions until the end if that's okay, and then we'll cover as many of those as we can within the time. So if everyone's happy with the agenda, then the best place to start, I guess, is for Michael and myself just to explain who we are and what our organisations are if you don't already know. So, if I start first, my name, as I said, is Paul Jager. I'm head of the property division at MOL. MOL is responsible for writing the study materials for the Property Mark qualifications, which are property qualifications in this country. And one of those qualifications is a qualification for tenancy deposits, which is why we're holding this webinar today, really to bring that to your attention in case there's any of you that would be particularly interested in this. So I'm responsible for the writing of the workbooks. Michael, however, is from TDS itself. And Michael, do you want to explain your position and the organisation as well?
Yes, I'm the Director of Dispute Resolution, which sounds a bit grand, but it essentially means I run the adjudication side of TDS. So the team of adjudicators who are making those adjudication decisions where the deposit's disputed at the end of the tenancy. But we have a wider remit, which is also around dispute prevention. It's not just adjudication. What we're very keen to do is give lots of advice and guidance to agents, landlords and tenants on how these things are interpreted and help them negotiate the return, hopefully, of their deposit without the need to adjudicate. TDS is the Tenancy Deposit Scheme, with one of the 3 government-approved schemes for tenancy deposit protection, and we offer an insured and a custodial scheme. The insurance-backed scheme is where agents or landlords hold the deposit throughout the tenancy, register it with us and pay a fee to protect it. If there's a dispute at the end of the tenancy, obviously let us know. We would call for the disputed deposit and away we go. In the custodial scheme, all of the deposits that are registered with us and held by us, and obviously people need to get involved with us at the end of the tenancy to release that deposit, even if there is no dispute. If there is, then of course adjudication's there to help solve that argument.
Lovely, thank you. So now we've explained who the two of us are. What we'd now like to cover, before we talk about training or qualifications, it's important that we just cover briefly really the laws that we have to follow And I suspect today we've got a mixture both of letting agents and perhaps landlords as well. So I'm going to hand you over to Mike, who's going to, as I say, cover the talk about sort of deposits and the law itself. Michael, again, over to you.
Thank you. So protecting deposits, I think the point to bear in mind with the legislation is what it's trying to do is to make sure that an agent or a landlord taking a deposit from a tenant does the right thing with the money, and that's where we talk about protection, and then also tells the tenant that they've done the right thing and what that means. So do the right thing, tell them that you've done it. In terms of protecting deposits, it's very easy. We offer an online system whereby you can register the deposit. As I say, if you're protecting it by insurance, then it's, if you like, a pay-as-you-go protection. For large estate agents, letting agents who belong to TDS, they pay an annual subscription, depending on how many tenancies they protect. But it's still simple online means of protecting deposits. As I say, if it's custodial, register the deposit and pay the deposit across to us. Again, all very easy online. As far as the legislation is concerned, what it is really saying is that if you receive a deposit on an assured short hold tenancy, you have to protect it with a statutory scheme within 30 days of receiving it. So that means the date that you take the deposit in relation to that tenancy, that may not be the date the tenant moves in. You know, maybe that you've entered into the tenancy agreement, done all the paperwork some weeks or months in advance. So 30 days from when that, if you like, tenancy agreement comes into existence and you've received the deposit from the tenant. In terms of the telling people you've done the right thing, again, within those 30 days, 30 calendar days, the landlord, the agent, is required to give the tenant what's called prescribed information. And this is a set of information, as the name suggests, prescribed by law, which tells the tenant where their money is, how it's protected, how they get their money back at the end of the tenancy, and also things around how the dispute resolution process works, what happens if you can't get hold of the landlord or tenant, and so on. At TDS, what we do is when your deposit is registered with us and protected with us, we issue a certificate, again online, a bit like a receipt. And what that means is the landlord or the agent can give that to the tenant to say, you know, I've done the right thing with your money. Here it is, protected by TDS, and here's your prescribed information. We provide templates and can also sort of pre-populate a lot of that prescribed information for landlords and agents as well. So it's actually very quick and easy to protect the deposit and to get the prescribed information. There's a couple of little wrinkles that sometimes people, I think, forget or perhaps don't appreciate. One is that these requirements about giving information also apply to what's called a relevant person, and that's somebody who pays the deposit on behalf of the tenant. So examples could be bank of mum and dad with students or children, obviously. It could be an insurance company that's housing somebody in temporary accommodation. Could be a local authority that's paying a deposit for somebody that they're accommodating in the private rented sector. So it's, I think, important to check when you get that deposit from the tenant, when you take that money, you know, are you paying this deposit or has somebody paid it for you? It's a big point, because if you don't serve that prescribed information on the relevant person, it doesn't matter that you've done it on served it on the tenant. You have to do it on both, and it's all or nothing. One of the things that we recommend to members is also, if you're not sure whether or not to protect the deposit, not always a bad thing to do it anyway. Reason for that is there is a statutory penalty if we get this wrong. If we don't protect deposits, or we don't serve that information, or we don't do either of those things within that 30 days. The penalty is one that the tenant enforces, if you like, takes action to get. And what they would do is take the landlord or agent to court if they can't reach an agreement. And the powers that the court has are to award or order the return of the deposit back to the tenant. They may order it to be paid into a scheme, a custodial scheme, so it's protected. But the more important issue, I think, is that the court can order a penalty to be paid by the landlord that's up to 3 times the amount of the deposit. If you do protect deposits and you serve prescribed information but you do it late, you miss the 30 days, same rules apply. So really vital to get that deposit protection in place and that prescribed information served within those 30 days. We have quite a nice story recently that we came across, which was an agent who took a deposit on a tenancy agreement relating to a canal boat. It was in Regent's Park Canal, living accommodation on the boat, and they weren't sure whether that was an AST or not. So they protected it with our scheme, thinking, well, worst case scenario, if it is an AST, I get caught by the penalty if I haven't protected it. If it's not an AST, well, not too much harm done protecting something I didn't need to protect. As it turns out, it was an AST. The rule really is that if a boat or a vessel like that is permanently attached to land, albeit water under the keel, but it can't float off anywhere, it's an interesting property, and it was in fact an AST. If it had been a vessel that was moored to land and you could move it, then it wouldn't have been an AST. So it's quite a nice little example of an agent thinking, not sure, but I'll do the safe thing, I'll do the right thing, and then either way, I'm covered if there's a problem later on.
Would it be fair to say also, and I talk as an ex-agent myself, that what's important when we talk about, whether we talk about deposits or whether we talk about just letting in general, there's quite a few moving parts now. There's quite a few things to think about, not only from a process point of view, but certainly a legislation point of view.
Yeah.
There's so many things that need to be covered.
No, that's right. And of course, the prescribed information is only a part of those issues. It's a much bigger game, as you say, energy efficiency, gas safety, immigration checks, right to rent, a whole gamut of things that landlords and agents need to be thinking about, not just obviously deposit protections, which is our bread and butter, if you like.
Absolutely, and I think that goes not only for letting agents, property agents that I'm sure we have with us this afternoon, but landlords as well. And again, I'm sure we have some of those this afternoon who've got their own portfolio of properties that they also need to consider so much law now. And I don't want to show my age, but I started in '85 as an agent where there wasn't half as much legislation as there is now, and you just need to make sure you really keep on the right side of it. Mike, do you think that's a very good point for us to then move on to talk about the academy and the qualification? Unless there was anything else you wanted to add about deposits.
That's an ideal.
Is that right? Is that a good segue? Wonderful, thank you. So, there we go. The slides have been a little temperamental this afternoon, so I do apologise to everyone, but we are on the right slide, so that's wonderful. Mike, do you want to just give our audience a little bit of background on the TDS Academy itself, and then I'll guide them a little on the actual TDS qualification that may be of use to them?
Okay. So we recognised some time back that it's really important for us to be able to give good quality advice and guidance and education to agents and landlords about the things we've been talking about. Obviously, from our perspective, the Academy is mainly concentrating on deposit protection, setting up the tenancy, moving the tenant in, getting things all, squared away at the start of the tenancy, how to deal with it at the end, checkouts, claiming from the deposit, moving through to possibly a dispute, and then adjudication at TDS. So if you like, the life cycle of a deposit from when it's born all the way through to the end of its life after the tenancy. So we offer a range of training options to help agents and landlords with that. We do what I call public events, where we hold regular training events throughout the country, regular dates across the year, a couple of different types of courses. We can also do some in-house training for agents and landlords as well. Obviously, if there's a number of people in one place, it's easier for us to come to them than the other way round. But yeah, a lot of busy training dates throughout the year. We've got one, for example, next week in York, which is sold out, looking at an adjudication workshop where we present delegates actual cases that we've dealt with, talk them through how the adjudicator would approach it and what sort of decisions they would make. And I think, as I said before, this is not just about dispute prevention or dispute resolution. It's about making our lives easier as agents and landlords, trying to, preempt some of those things that can cause us problems later on in a tenancy. And we certainly see in a lot of the disputes we deal with that getting your ducks in a row right at the beginning, obviously important, but a number of the disputes we see, it goes wrong at the end because of what was done or not done right at the beginning. So hence that, if you like, holistic view of the deposit life cycle.
Would it also, again, be fair to say, Mike, that I think, and time does go very quickly, but it was at least a year or two ago that I know TDS decided that in conjunction with the academy and the training that you provide, they felt it also important that they could offer a qualification. Something where, this is a nationally recognised qualification, something where there was something at the end of it, particularly for letting agents who might like it on their CV anyway, but perhaps for landlords as well. And I know they approached the awarding body, Property Mark Qualifications, who agreed to do the qualification, and then we wrote the materials. And that's really the second part of this slide, that in addition to the workshops that Mike has discussed through the academy, TDS also provide a TDS qualification through Property Mark Qualifications, which is the one that you can see on the screen. It's called a technical award. It's a level 3 qualification, and level 3 means it's at a similar level to an A level, but it is a nationally recognised qualification, and particularly for letting agents who are looking to perhaps differentiate themselves from their competitors down the high street or online, they will often find that having a qualification and being able to tell prospective customers that really can give them the edge to pick up business. But it's also possible that landlords will also be interested in this qualification, and that's because, if I move on to the next slide and just give you a little guide as to what it includes, the qualification is in two parts. The first part is just general information about lettings, general information that you need, whether you're a letting agent or a landlord, and it covers things like general letting principles, things like contract law that you need to know about, data protection as well. And then the second part of the qualification is specifically around tenancy deposits. And you can see here on the slide here the sort of areas that it covers. It's not an inexhaustible list. I just picked out a few subjects that happen to be in the qualification that may be of use. And you can see that the qualification really does cover quite a wide area as far as sort of the deposits and general letting is concerned. For those of you who are interested in taking this qualification, it's very easy to do. It's a qualification that you can buy the workbook that will have the material in that you need to study in order to take the qualification. And the workbook isn't just a textbook. It's not just a book where it's just full of words, full of text, and it's very difficult to get through. It is a proper academic, educational workbook, quite a large workbook. I think I last looked at it, it was at least 400 pages there. But we've written it in an educational way so that throughout the book, not only are you reading text, but you also have questions in there so that you can test your knowledge. There's also larger review exercises in there. So again, you can confirm that a material you've read beforehand, you've actually understood. And all of it is there in order to prepare you for a test that you take at the end in order to achieve this qualification. And as the qualification is divided into 4 sections, which are called units, not surprisingly, the exam is in 4 parts. There are 4 multiple choice tests that you take. And these tests are taken around centres around the country. They're done through Pearson VUE. Any of you who've had to take your driving test and have done the test in front of a computer screen will have gone to a Pearson VUE centre. This technical award is done in the same place. And as I say, it's 4 exams that you have to take, 1 for each of the units of the qualification, and they're multiple choice. Now, I would say they're not multiple guess. They are absolutely multiple choice. You do need to know your stuff. But it's 30 questions in 20 minutes. And in fact, do you know what? Can I flip that? My apologies. It's 20 questions in 30 minutes. I do apologise. That you take for each of the units. And to be honest, as long as you know your stuff, you should be okay taking those tests. And I say there's multiple choice. You don't have to write answers or do any essays or anything like that. When you passed all 4 units, you've achieved the technical award qualification. So, Mike, I hope that just gives an overview of the TDS qualification itself. Was there anything you wanted to add as far as the qualification was concerned?
I think absolutely spot on, obviously, what you said there. I think it's also, if you like, the icing on the cake. We offer good information, guidance, advice on our website. We've got the Academy, which is offering some training courses which are good for continual professional development if you're an agent or a landlord that needs to do that. And as you said, one of the reasons for developing the qualification was because people said we want more. We want to become, if not experts, at least near experts on knowing this. So, as I say, icing on the cake, full-blown qualification, but not too scary, not too difficult.
Absolutely. And we found ourselves also that you're right, that whether you're a landlord, whether you're an agent, whether you're a letting agent, that there are, as you say, the training courses they can go on with yourselves, but there's also now this extra tangible element, this actual nationally recognised qualification that is also available to you. And again, we find a lot of people do these qualifications not only to get the qualification themselves, but also just because they want to keep up to date with the law and to demonstrate to the public or potential customers that actually they do have a qualification, they do know what they're doing. It does legitimise their activities. So,
absolutely. And what's also interesting there is that we use this qualification ourselves at TDS for our caseworkers, our adjudicators, our dispute resolution team. They all need to do this as part of their own training and development. So, we know what agents and landlords need to know too.
Absolutely. And it would also be fair to say, as I just moved the slide on one, that those of you, and there may be letting agents with us today, who have already got a technical award qualification. You may already have, if you haven't got the TDS one, you may already have the technical award in residential letting and property management. Now, if you have got that qualification already, then Christmas has come early. Because if you pass that qualification, then you actually only need to do 2 units of the TDS qualification to achieve the full qualification. You do not need to do all 4 units. You are exempt from the first 2 for the Technical Award Tenancy Deposit Qualification. So if you're thinking about taking this TDS qualification, but you're not quite sure, but you have already got the Technical Award Residential Letting Qualification, then really it's almost a no-brainer, because you only have to do 2 more units to achieve another Technical Award, and you only have to buy 2 units from us if you've got your Technical Award Lettings qualification. So not only will it take you less time, it's also a cheaper proposition as well. And I guess I should add, if I'm just being cheeky, just for one moment, that if we have letting agents on the line or inventory providers on the line at the moment, that if you haven't already got one of these qualifications through Property Mark qualifications, you may decide again that you want to contact us to discuss that as well, because in addition to the tenancy deposit qualification, there's also a technical award for inventory providers. And as I already mentioned a couple of times, there's also a technical award for residential lettings as well. So if you haven't yet got the tenancy deposit one and don't yet have any other qualification, again, we can guide you on which of these qualifications is suitable for you, as well as the tenancy deposit one. Michael, was there anything else you wanted to add on that, or anything else you wanted to add generally to sort of the subject before I handed out contact details?
No, I think I just maybe add one point, which is an emerging issue, and that's when we're dealing with deposit protection disputes, we are seeing increasingly that tenants who go and get advice, for example, about a £200 cleaning claim, are being met with advice, well, put that to one side for the moment. Let's have a look at whether your landlord or whether your agent complied with all of this deposit protection legislation. Because if they didn't, then you might have a claim for that penalty, and you know, £200 for cleaning suddenly becomes rather unimportant. So again, I think it's a big stick to crack a small walnut, but it's very easy to avoid. Get this training, get all that understanding and knowledge in place, and then that's another issue that you can prevent arising at the end of the tenancy.
Thank you. So the next steps, and then we'll, I think, take some questions, because we're making good time, making good headway here. As far as the next step is concerned, if this qualification you think might be of use to you, and either you'd like to sign up for it and buy the workbook, that's very simple, or you just like some more information, then the slide here has got our telephone number. It's got MOL's telephone number. We have an inquiries team. They'd be very, very happy to guide you on the qualification and the purchase of the workbook. And also, you're very welcome. If you don't want to ring them, you can email them, and again, they'll be able to guide you on that. Michael, I am mindful though that I don't have the TDS telephone number there. Would you like to give that as well for anyone who wants more information on the academy?
Yes, of course. So you've got a number of means to contact us. You could email us at info@tenancydepositscheme.com. You can also give us a phone call, and that's 0300 037 1000. If you go onto our website, at the top of the home page there's a green contact us button, and if you follow that, then it give you all the contact details. There's also a live chat function on the website as well.
Fantastic, thank you. So this might be a good point as we've reached the almost on the dot of half an hour, so we've done well. Asking if anyone, we've got quite a few people in the room today, would like to ask any questions about the training, the qualifications we've mentioned. We'd be very happy, Michael and myself, to guide you and answer any questions that you have. So I'm just waiting to see if anyone would like to ask anything. Actually, I have to say, this might be the quietest group, the most congenial group I've ever dealt with on a webinar. You are quite quiet. Usually you get bombarded with questions. So, do we have any questions before we bring the session to an end? Michael, if you just bear with us, we'll just wait to see if any appear. While we're waiting for any questions, was there anything else, Michael, that you'd like to add that perhaps we haven't covered yet while people are thinking about questions?
Only to say that if anybody wanted, as you've said, to contact you, then by all means do. Equally, if anybody wants to get in touch with me at TDS and talk about the qualification or the academy, then that's absolutely fine. And I'm just michael.morgan@tenancydepositscheme.com.
Now, we do have a few questions. Both Liz and Caroline have asked the most obvious of questions. Thank you very much indeed for asking it. It wasn't something that I covered, and that's to do with costings. And one question is how much is the book, and the other is how much is the actual qualification itself. So let's start with the qualification. The qualification is undertaken by Property Mark Qualifications, and they deal with the exam costings themselves. So I tend not to talk about those on behalf of the awarding body. What I would suggest, as far as the qualification is concerned, if you give our inquirers team a ring on that number, explain that you've been on the webinar, you're interested, they'll be able to point you in the right direction as far as exam fees are concerned. However, as far as the workbook is concerned, that's much easier for me to guide you on. The workbook price does depend on whether you are a member of one of the Property Mark professional bodies. So if you're a member of, for example, ALA, then you actually are able to purchase the workbook at a member rate. So the workbook itself, the study workbook for the qualification is £255. But if you're a member, then you could purchase the workbook at only £150. And actually that's also, I think, if you're a student member as well, if you join them as a student member. So if you're a member of the professional body, you actually get a member rate. So I hope that helps. And as I say, if you've got any other questions around that or the exams, again, use the inquirers team. They'll be very happy to guide you. So, Michael, I think that really covers the sort of questions we had. They were really sort of around costings and whatnot, which was good questions, and I hadn't covered that, so thank you for reminding me of that. We do have another question, which is how much work is involved? Can we get the book from the local library? Actually, that's a very good question. I've never been asked that before, so thank you. So how much work is involved? Let's do that bit first. This is a very, very common question that I get asked by a lot of learners. And without sitting on the fence, I guess the easiest answer is this. The amount of work you need to put into it, unfortunately, is going to vary person to person. And I only say that because it does depend very much on how motivated the learner is, how much experience they already have, how much knowledge they already have, and how good a learner they are. Having said that, we have had learners who will start one of these qualifications and will absolutely zip through it because they have the experience, they have the knowledge, and they might zip through it in, gosh, a month or two, even allowing for the fact they've got a job and a social life and all the rest of it. But I do have other learners who take their time and will take, well, I was going to say 6 months, but I know there are learners that take much longer than that. They do it at their own pace. I did mention there's 4 units you have to take an exam for, but you can do 1 unit at a time. You're not pressed into having to do all 4, so there is a little bit of breathing space. And if I remember rightly, the awarding body now actually allows you up to 3 years to take the 4 exams. For most people, I think that's probably going to be too long, and I would suggest that if you're going to do the qualification, if it takes any longer than between 6 months and a year, motivation does tend to sap after that. So what I would say to you is, if you want to do this, then you'll want to do this, as I say, allow a minimum 3 months, allow a maximum a year, just from a study point of view. Having said that, those of you who already have the technical award in residential lettings, if you're only going to buy 2 units, then plainly that's going to cut down the study time drastically. And again, if you've got experience, you may find those 2 units, really you zip through them in almost perhaps even a month or 2. Take your qualification, take the exams, and be done with it. So I hope you don't mind me, just as I say, fudging the answer just a little, but it does depend on your own unique circumstances. And can you get the book from the local library? You can't, unfortunately. It's because it's study materials. And it's a book that allows you, as you work your way through it, to write down the answers in the book and do it that way. It's an individual book for each learner. So it's something that I'll be surprised if a library's had it. Although I've never been asked that question before, I don't think I've ever seen it in a library before. It's not that type of book. You buy it for each individual learner. You need your own copy. So again, I hope that's helped. Any other questions that we can answer? Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. I think, Mike, that is the end of the questions, and I did promise we'd perhaps do almost a 40-minute session, and we're almost on time. So in the absence of any questions, was there anything closing you'd like to say before we bring the webinar to an end?
Only to reinforce what I think your listeners have picked up on, and what you've also said, that it's a great qualification and it's very flexible. Lots of time to do it, not expensive, and as you say, you may be halfway there already. So definitely worth a look.
Absolutely. Well, can I thank everyone for their attendance today? It's really nice of you to come along. I hope this has been of use to you. Please do give us a ring if you have any other questions, or email us and we'd be very happy to help you. So I'll bring the webinar to a close. Michael, thank you so much for your time and for sharing everything with us. Can I wish everyone a wonderful afternoon, a very good weekend, and hopefully we'll see you all again very soon. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.